This is Pokemon Z, a fan game that just recently was finished and translated into English. It's a new twist on the Kalos Story, where instead of a war taking place thousands of years ago, it only took place a few hundred years ago, in the equivalent of the Pokemon world's 18th century, which in the real world would have been right around when the French Revolution was happening, which is a really cool and interesting take on the story. Your player character, as well as your rivals, are apprentices, who is a founding member of what will eventually become Team Flare, with Pokemon from all 9 generations, as well as new evolutions and regional variants, and a completely insane story. We are in for one heck of a journey. And of course, just like with most of my other videos, I decided to do this as a blind hardcore Nuzlocke run, which means if a Pokemon faints is considered dead, the level cap is the next leader's ace, no active items can be used in battle, and we play the games on set mode. If you like the video, the sound of my voice, or just, Pokemon stuff in general, you should really consider subscribing to the channel. The only way that I'm going to be able to continue to grow is with all of your help. And nearly 100,000 people check out my videos every month, but we're not even at 20K yet. Come on, just hit the button, especially if you've seen my videos before. But anywho, let's jump into the world of ancient Kalos. We start off in the back of a carriage where we can choose which regional starters we want to begin our journey with. And of course, we're going to be choosing Kalos, since the starters have new final evolutions, and I definitely want to check those out. The carriage driver lets us know we're supposed to be meeting up with another one of Professor Olivier's apprentices, and we need to go find him. As we approach this talking snowman, he lets us know to choose one of these Pokemon and help him out. So that means we get to choose Chespin, Fennekin, and Froakie. And I know each of the 3 Kalos starter Pokemon have a different final evolution than they do in the standard games, and I honestly don't know what their new typings are going to be, but I'm feeling Chespin. Every time I've played Gen 6, it's definitely the Pokemon I've chosen the least, so we're going to rock with that. And we're going to name our Chespin Chip. And we're attacked by a regional Ice Normal Bidoof, which is really neat looking. Going for a Mudslap, we score a decent hit, and then follow up with a Vine Whip, scoring a crit, and the KO. After defeating the dastardly Bidoof, the young man introduces himself as Cristiano. He also reveals that the Bidoof like to bury their enemies in the snow for fun, not to defend themselves. And while that's absolutely adorable, it's incredibly horrifying. But this officially marks the beginning of our journey into Pokemon Z. After making our way to Canvas Town, Cristiano lets us know that we need to find the lab as quickly as possible. It's a monotype challenge mode built right into the game, which is super cool. And after we enter the lab, while we can't find Professor Olivier anywhere, that gross fused Team Rocket starter that I'm always talking about in my Infinite Fusion videos randomly gets up and leaves. And she seems incredibly unsurprised that she not only created life, but it got up and walked out the door. She lets us know that our 3rd apprentice is still at home and we need to go pick her up. So we set off to the nearby town, but not before she wants to see us have our very first Pokemon battle. And now it's time for us to take on Cristiano in our first ever rival battle. He starts off by sending in his Froakie, and we're going to send Chip in. The Froakie goes for a bubble on the first turn, lowering our speed, as we go for a Vine Whip, scoring a massive hit, getting him down into the red. And after he pounds it out, we can go for one more Vine Whip, KOing the Froakie, defeating Cristiano. Thanks to the advances in basic hygiene, life expectancy has risen beyond 30 years. Wow. Look at those Pokemon go. They sure are giving it all to stomp those grapes. It's a pleasure to watch. I wonder if they could stomp on me too sometime. Over on Route 1, we're going to grab ourselves a Fletchling. After making our way to Merlot Manor, we meet this fabulous mustache Merlot and his daughter Amelia, who's also going to be joining us on our journey as our second rival. Now that the 3 of us are together, Professor Olivier lets us know that we need to compete in the Poketour and defeat the 12 regents of the Kalos region, and then the king will grant us one wish, and our journey officially begins. Over in Final Town, we're going to grab ourselves a Bunnelby. After grabbing our Olrod, we're going to head back over to Canvas Town, and we're going to grab ourselves a Krabby. Over on Route 2, we're going to run into Cristiano and Mila again, and I don't really know what's going on here. We meet back up with Cristiano and Amelia, where we find out that she has a horrible throwing arm and is completely unable to catch his Flabébé. But what we do find out is that she has the power to influence Pokemon and have them join her without the need of throwing Pokeballs at them, which is a very unique and cool and special gift. Anywho, she challenges us to a rival battle. And now it's time for us to take on Amelia. Amelia starts off by sending in her Flabébé, and we're going to send Chip in. Going for a Vine Whip, we get it down pretty low as it goes for a Vine Whip as well. And after just one more, we can take it down. So when Fennekin comes in, we're going to swap out and send in Pinchy as she goes for an Ember. Now going for a Bubble, because we know how great Krabby's special attack is, we actually score a pretty massive hit as this thing continues to throw Embers at us and actually gets the burn off. But with just one more Bubble, we can take down the Fennekin, defeating Melia. Over on Route 2, we're going to grab ourselves a Nidoran. And then over in the Griselle Cave, we're going to grab a Zubat. The mystery of Voltorb reproduction has been solved. They fertilize empty Pokeballs using electromagnetic particles. Do not leave your Pokeballs near them. And in Griselle City, we're going to find ourselves a Dunsparce. While fighting up to the level cap, a few of our friends are going to evolve. First, Tobias is going to evolve into a Fletchinder. And next up, Bob is going to evolve into a Nidorino. We meet up with Canola, the first region, in our Poketour, but before we can challenge her to our gym battle, we need to help her out. There's been a lot of complaints about Pokemon being randomly abducted, and she wants us to look into it. And over on Route 3, we're going to find ourselves a new regional Pikachu. Following the footsteps of a Frou-Frou outside of town, we've come across these mysterious men wearing fedoras and plague masks, and they're definitely part of the evil team. And I've got to say that the aesthetic that Team Azoth goes for is really, really awesome. I love that this game's lore has alchemy as magic, and it's really, really neat. Anyway, after beating these two dinguses up, over in the distance we see this mysterious Assassin's Creed looking cleric and his Absol. And that's not creepy at all. In an abandoned village, we find the aforementioned Frou-Frou, and not even the power of Melia's twinkle fingers is enough to dissuade it from attacking us. Shortly thereafter, the mysterious cleric introduces himself as Mira. Mira lets us know that Team Azoth's experiments have left this Frou-Frou in a state of perpetual pain and suffering, and that there's nothing left that we can do for it. After the screen cuts away, we see tears streaming down Mira's face. Over in Acrylic Town, we're going to grab ourselves a Galarian Zigzagoon. And now, it's time for us to face off against Canola in our first Bastion challenge. She starts off by setting in Krogunk, and we're going to send in Tobias. Going for a peck on the first turn, we score a massive hit on the Krogunk as it goes for a Rock Smash, barely doing anything to us. Additionally, we get the Flame Body off, which is awesome, so even though she's going to heal back up with a Super Potion, we can go for another peck, lowering it down pretty substantially. On the following turn, it goes for a Sucker Punch, scoring a crit, but not doing basically anything because of the burn, and then we take it out. Next up comes Meditite, and going for a peck, we can score a huge hit and an Oko. And for our final Pokemon, a regional Kricketune comes in, and I absolutely love this dude. New and improved mustache. But somehow when I go for a peck, he riposts it, firing it back at me, but luckily our Flame Body gets the burn off. We're going to go for the peck again, and he's going to return it yet again, knocking us down to just 21 HP. And I'm wondering if he does this with all physical moves or just super effective moves. So we're going to switch things up as he goes for a Brico, doing basically nothing to us. And we're going to go for an Ember, so it must just be physical attacks he can riposte. We're going to stay in as he goes for a Rock Smash, getting us down to just 6 HP, lowering our defense, and we're going to go for an Ember, getting him way down into the red, low enough so that the burn can grab the KO, and we defeat Canola. Over on Route 4, we're going to grab ourselves a Riolu. Over in the Hillside Forest, we're going to grab ourselves a Kricketot. After fighting our way through the Hillside Forest, we come upon Team Azoth once again. And they're trying to get some spores out of this Morlo, similar to how Team Plasma is beating up a Mashana. Cristiano then bursts onto the scene in a display showing that he is multi-classed into both Paladin and Bard, not only looking to defend the weak, but also do a whole lot of talking that ultimately leads to fighting. Nubula starts off by sending in Weeping Bell, and we send in Asher. Going for a workup on the first turn, we're going to raise our attack, as she goes for a Bug Bite, doing a little bit of damage to us. Following up with a Force Palm, we do about 30%, and luckily we get the paralysis off as she goes for another Bug Bite. Now going for a Rock Tomb so we can get a little bit more speed on it, we manage to score a crit and KO. Next comes Duo Scion, and I absolutely love the regional of this, but that also means we need to stop out, so we do, sending Chip in. And going for a bite, we can score a pretty big hit, getting it down to a third as it sets up an Acid Armor. After it heals up a bit with its Oran Berry, a bite takes it way down to the red as it goes for another Heart Stamp, bringing us to about 50%. Nubula then uses the Super Potion, healing all the way back up, which is kind of frustrating, and we're just going to keep on chomping on this thing as it keeps on using Heart Stamp on us. Now that we're a little bit lower than I'd like, I'm actually going to swap out and send in Bob, assuming another Fairy move, and apparently Heart Stamp is Psychic, you silly goose. So we're going to swap out yet again, and this time sending in Pop, who barely manages to tank it. We're going to swap out again, this time sending in Tobias as she goes for Los Delicande, which is a Fairy move. Then we can fire back with an Ember, doing a little bit more damage as a Heart Stamp gets us down to 50%. One more Ember takes the Duo Scion down, and we just barely squeak by without losing somebody. Her final Pokemon Bronzor comes in, and we're going to go for an Ember, scoring a pretty big hit, but even on a crit, it doesn't even do 50% as she goes for an Extra Sentry. On the following turn, we go for another Ember, getting him down to about a third as another Extra Sentry comes in, getting us down to 7. My team is excessively weak to Psychic, so we're going to swap in Chip as she goes for another Extra Sentry, getting us down to 9 HP. But knowing I'm going to outspeed, we go for a bite, manage to score the KO. By the skin of our teeth, we didn't lose anybody, and we defeat Nubula. Team Azoth then leaves, and Cristiano is left thinking about why intellectual people don't have discussions. We find Cristiano in the middle of College Town where he's playing a lute with a Jigglypuff. And after putting all the locals to sleep, he asks if we would like to challenge him to a battle to see how far he's come. And now we take on Cristiano in our next rival battle. He starts off by sending in that Jigglypuff, and we send Asher in. We're going to pivot Asher out and send in Pikachu as he goes for a Draining Kiss. Going for a Rock Smash because I misclicked, we do a little bit of damage as she goes for a Body Slam, knocking us down to just 3 HP. So we're going to pivot Pizza out, this time sending in Bob as she goes for a Rock Smash. Bob's going to go for a Poison Tail, and we can quickly KO the Jigglypuff. Next up comes Frogadier, who's Psychic type in this game, which is really neat, but that also means that my team is at a huge disadvantage. We're going to swap out, sending in Chip as he goes for a Confusion. Then with another Confusion, we're going to get brought down to just 24 HP as we fire off a Razor Leaf, scoring a crit and the Oko. And actually, I never thought about this when I picked Chip, but the fact that he is a, musician makes sense that he took Froakie, so that kind of worked out, huh? His final Pokemon Cubone comes in, and it is a amazing regional variant. But it's also quad weak to grass, so we can quickly score the Oko on this awesome Cubone, and we defeat Cristiano. During our fight, apparently Team Azoth set up shop here, and a bunch of people are listening. So let's check it out. To be honest, it hurts everything. I can't wait to die. Well, okay. Don't say that, madame. Life is a precious gift. Please drink this revitalizing remedy we've prepared. I feel as energetic when I was a young girl. Holy goddamn. Over in College Town, we can grab ourselves a Lillipup. And in an effort to adjust our party a little bit, we're going to add Bingo to the party, and he is immediately going to evolve into a Herdier. Over on Route 5, we're going to grab ourselves an Esper. We meet up with Melia over in the Sanctuary of the Kings, where we're going to have a nice longing look at these statues together. And she wants to challenge us to a rival battle. Melia starts off by sending in her Floette, and we're sending in Asher. We're going to swap Asher out, sending in Pizza as she goes for a Charm, which is a little unfortunate. We follow up with a Thunder Wave as she goes for a Smoochy Kiss. After getting the paralysis off, after a couple of Poison Fangs, we can take it down while we get knocked down to about half. Next out comes Muna, so we're going to swap Pizza out, sending in Bingo as she goes for a Confusion. And we can follow up with a Bite, scoring a pretty big hit. The Muna fires off another Confusion, getting us to about 50%, and one more Bite takes it down. Her Braxian comes in, which has been changed from Psychic to Electric. That's kind of cool. And we're going to swap out, sending in Chip, hoping that she goes for a electric move, which we were right. The Braxian then goes for an Incinerate, scoring a massive hit on us, and we can fire back with a quad-effective Bulldoze, getting the Oko. Oh my god, we were so close to losing Chip. But we defeat Melia. While getting up to the level cap, Saigai is going to evolve into a Meowstic. And now it's time for us to take on Hisopo and his ghastly, ghouly Pokemon. Hisopo starts off by sending in Lampent, and we send in Toby. We're going to go for a Thief on the first turn, scoring a decent hit and stealing his Eviolite. Now with our own defenses boosted, he's going to swap out, sending in Mischievous, and we're going to go for another Thief. But obviously we can't steal his Assault Vest because we already have an item. A Draining Kiss is going to activate our Flame Body, which is huge as we go for another Thief, getting him down just below 50%. Hisopo uses his first Super Potion as we go for a Thief, doing just a bit of chip damage. The Mischievous then goes for a Shockwave, which we can tank like a boss thanks to the Eviolite. He then fires off a Shadow Ball, which is going to lower our special defense, and we're going to roost up again to get some more healing in. Assuming he's going to go for another Stab Shadow Ball, we're going to swap out, this time sending in Bingo, and he goes for a Shockwave. He fires off another Shockwave, doing a bit of damage to us as we go for a Workup. The Mischievous goes for another Shockwave, getting us just below 50%, and a Crunch scores a crit and the KO. Lampent comes back in, and we can outspeed, going for another Crunch, quickly grabbing the KO on it as well, but unfortunately we get burned. But fortunately, I remember to equip a Raspberry, since this time I downloaded the boss guide. His final Pokemon, Cofagrigus, comes in, who's a Steel type in this game. We're going to go for a Crunch, scoring a massive crit, getting him way down into the red as he goes for a Ferrospin, which activates a Wrap-like effect, KOing our good boy. We're then going to send Tobias back in, go for an Ember, KO the Cofagrigus, and we defeat Hisopo. But we've lost our first Pokemon of the run. Back outside the gym, we run into Professor Olivier, Mila, and Cristiano. The professor lets us know that we've been invited to the chateau, where Hisopo's going to be putting on a play that I'm going to be starring in. But our real goal while we're there is to sneak into a hidden vault, where she believes that the sap of the Eternal Tree is being stored. And if we want to defeat Team Azoth and further Professor Olivier's experiments, we need to take it. Reluctantly, Cristiano agrees, and Melia helps the professor go get dressed. Cristiano and I then head over to the cafe, where he regales us for hours and hours on really cool stories and hilarious things he did at school. This guy is the dorkiest bard I have ever seen in my entire life. Melia and Professor Olivier then come by the cafe, dressed to the nines, and it's time for us to head to that fancy party. When we enter said fancy party, we see that Mira has also been invited. He then says some mysterious things about the Eternal Tree and then exits. In this very familiar-looking courtyard, we meet a very fancy man wearing blood-red clothing, and this is not any type of foreshadowing whatsoever. He is, however, incredibly horny. He introduces himself as Lanto, and he is the wealthiest man in Kalos at this time. And Cristiano is completely infatuated with this dude. And I always thought the bard was the one who was supposed to be the seducing, not the other way around. In the middle of this fancy party, we're going to grab ourselves a Palmy. Later that night, we sneak away from the party and eventually find the hidden vault that we've been looking for. But it turns out that unfortunately, only a member of the royal family can open the door as a security precaution. And this is when Melia reveals the truth to us, that her father isn't Mustache Merlot, that she is the daughter of King Aster. She lets us know that we'll explain why she's been so secretive a little bit later on. But right now, we need to get into the vault and take what we need before somebody finds us. And not only do we find the crystallized tree sap, but we also find a book written by Master Sycamore about the love between Pokemon and man. The illicit, illegal love of Pokemon and man. And before you take out the horny stick, you need to remember that in Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum, that literally was a book in the actual library. And here, before we can take the tree sap, we run into Mira yet again, who's wondering how we managed to get into the vault through a door that he knows that only the royal family can open. But when we question how he got in here, he lets us know that he spent weeks scouting out the sewers, but he isn't gonna let us take that tree sap because he knows how important it is. And you know what that means, everybody? It's time for a Pokemon battle. We are going to swap Asher out immediately, sending in Toby as he goes for an Iron Defense. So I'm going to go for an Ember, doing about 60%, as the Mawile goes for a Thunder Fang, doing just over 50. Luckily, our Flame Body gets the burn off, and one more Ember can easily take down the Mawile. Next up comes Kadabra. So we're going to swap Tobadias out and send in Hooligan as he goes for a Shockwave. Then going for a bite, we can easily score the Oko with a crit. Absol comes in as his final Pokemon, and we're gonna go for a Headbutt, and luckily we get the flinch off despite only doing about 20%. After we get him down to about half, the Absol heals up and goes for an Aerial Ace, knocking us down to 50%, and another Headbutt is gonna get him down to about a quarter. Now that we're only at 8 HP, we're going to swap Hooligan out, sending in Pizza as Mira uses a Super Potion. Then going for a Thunder Punch with Pizza, we're going to get him down to about 50% as a bite knocks us way into the red. We're then going to swap Pizza out, sending in Chip as he uses a second Super Potion. Absol goes for a bite, doing about 30%, and I'm going to go for a Bulldoze, doing about a third as well. Now that we outspeed, we can go for a Seed Bomb, scoring a hit that is big enough to KO the Absol, and we defeat Mira. After defeating Mira, we leave him no choice, and he will trust our judgment and allow us to take the tree sap. Later on after the party, we give Professor Olivier the tree sap, and Melia tells her about her parentage. The professor then decides not to pry, knowing that the royal family must have their reasons for keeping Melia a secret, and is just happy that we were able to get it without too much difficulty. And hopefully it'll prove useful in not only her research, but stopping Team Azoth. And over on Route 6, we're going to find ourselves at Graviard, who we not only can swap out for Lanoon right away, but we can also evolve her right away into a Houndstone. While fighting our way through Route 6, Asher is going to finally evolve into a Lucario. Over in the Gloomy Cave, we're going to grab ourselves a Slowpoke. Over in Profane Town, we're going to grab ourselves a Nuzleaf. While traveling through the Profane Swamp, the three of us stop to camp for the night. And this is where Melia gives us her backstory. When the king and his wife were traveling just before she was born, there was a horrible storm where their carriage driver, as well as the go-go carrying it, were killed. With nowhere else to go, King Aster and the queen begged a woman who was living in the forest to let them stay there for the night. And she agreed. Only if King Aster would give her something in return. The king responded that he would give anything. And this satisfied her. That night, Melia was born, and the old woman named her price, the newborn daughter. When the king obviously refused this request, the old woman revealed herself to be a witch, and she cursed their entire lineage to die so long as they stayed together. And shortly thereafter, her mother passed away. Her father, not only filled with grief for the loss of his wife, but fearing the fate of his daughter if she stayed, asked Mustache Merlot to take care of her, to which he agreed. The general public was also told that the princess passed away due to the same illness that took her mother, and from that day forward, King Aster became a recluse. And that is why, to this day, the general public sees him as an unfit ruler. He never remarried, never had any more children, and never leaves Lumio City. When we make our way back to Profane Town, we're greeted by Mustache Merlot as well as a bunch of Kingsguard. Team Azoth has been hiding out in Profane Town, and he plans to hunt them down. The townspeople then begin chanting a name, Alka, and a carriage being driven by Team Azoth comes out of nowhere. And from that vehicle, we see a powerful woman, hair billowing in the wind, completely unaware of how exactly shirts work. And next to her, a Rotom Air, the fan constantly blowing her hair in the wind. She then picks up Mustache Merlot and throws him over a house. Just yeets the man. In Santalune City, we head over to the Alchemy Academy and try to say that 5 times fast, but we find out that the local regent has recently passed away. Wolfram, who's a former classmate of the professor, has taken over as headmaster for the academy and wants our help in recovering some research documents that Sapine was working on. And we agree, provided that he'll give us an opportunity to earn our badge afterwards. After investigating the burnt-out lab, we find this Warforged artificer, who reveals himself as F3, the mechanical son of Sapine. F3 lets us know that he has the information that Wolfram and the Academy would be looking for, and he's more than happy to provide it. So he leaves ahead of us, and we head back to the Academy. While exploring the laboratory, we can give Pizza a Thunderstone to finally evolve it into a Raichu. Of course, when returning from the lab back to the Academy, Wolfram's a bad guy, and he has F3 tied up. But after we beat the crap out of him and save F3, it'll be him who we challenge for our 3rd gym badge. So let's head over to the Bastion. And now we need to grind ourselves to the level cap before taking on F3, so first Tobias is going to evolve, finally, into a Talonflame. And now it's time for us to take on F3 for our 3rd gym challenge. F3 starts off by sending in a Porygon! And I absolutely love this thing! Okay, so we're going to go for a Brick Break on the first turn and KO the regular Porygon, no problem. Next up comes Porygon Z, who's going to go for a Lava Plume and score a huge hit on Asher as we go for another Brick Break, and fortunately we can grab ourselves the Oko. His final Pokemon, Porygon 2, comes in, and we're going to outspeed, going for a Brick Break again, scoring another Hoko, and we defeat F3 1, 2, 3. At the end of Route 8, over by Lantos' house, we run into Cristiano yet again. Him and his newly evolved Wigglytuff are playing some beautiful music for the nearby Pokemon, but he doesn't want us to think he's been slacking off in his training and then challenges us to another battle. Cristiano starts off by sending his newly evolved Wigglytuff, and we send him Pizza. Hoping for an Oko, we can go for a Poison Fang on the first turn, doing about 2/3 as it fires off a Hyper Voice, which does about 50%. Cristiano then pivots, sending in Marowak, which obviously can avoid us. Assuming that the Marowak is then going to go for a ground move, we're going to swap into Tobias to avoid it. And then going for an Ember, we can do about 50% as it goes for a Thunder Punch and luckily doesn't even do half. Cristiano then uses his first Super Potion as we go for another Ember, not even doing as much damage as we did last time. So, assuming another Thunder Punch, I'm going to swap out into Chip as he goes for a Rock Tomb instead. Then he's going to go for, I think, a Gyro Ball, and then we fire off with Bulldoze, grabbing the KO. Frogadier comes in next, and we're going to pivot, sending in Asher, because I don't think it has any Psychic-type moves, and I need to do something. A Muddy Water does about 50%, and then another one is going to slam us hard, getting us down to just 10 HP as we miss a Dark Pulse. We then each switch our Pokemon, him sending in Wigglytuff, and me sending in Psyguy. After that, Cristiano heals up with a Hyper Potion, and we go for a Fake Out, barely doing anything. I'm then going to set up a Light Screen to try to reduce some of the damage he's doing, and he goes for a Hyper Voice, doing barely anything with the Light Screen. Then going for a Psyshock, we can get him down to about 50% as another Hyper Voice fires off. Another Psyshock is going to bring him way down into the red as he smooches us to heal up just a bit, but one more Psyshock can safely take him down. Frogadier comes back in, going for a Dark Pulse. What am I thinking? Luckily, because of the Light Screen, it doesn't KO, and we do barely anything as the Light Screen wears off. Knowing that I don't really have another choice here, I'm going to try to set up a Light Screen. As we barely hold on, I can get it up. Then the Frogadier finishes off our Psyguy, KOing our second Pokemon of the run. I'm going to pivot, sending in Pizza, hoping that I can outspeed as I go for a Thunder Punch, scoring a huge hit, and luckily the KO. His final Pokemon, Sliggoo, comes out, And after missing a Thunder Wave, it hits us with a Mud Shot, getting us down to just 14 HP. We're going to pivot out, sending in Maisie because I know that I have Play Rough, and a Mud Shot does barely anything, but obviously it's going to lower our speed. Another Mud Shot comes in, doing just a bit, lowering our speed as I go for a Play Rough and miss. The Sliggoo then sets up a Rain Dance for reasons, and we can go for a Play Rough, landing a huge hit, getting it way down into the red. Another Mud Shot comes in, lowering our speed even more. We connect with a Crunch, grab the KO, and we defeat Cristiano. After the battle, we meet up with Lanto, who invites us to his chateau for dinner. He lets us know that Professor Olivier is already there, and that we should come and make ourselves very comfortable. Why is this so horny? With the loss of Guy, we are going to swap Dame into the party, evolving her fully into a Gardevoir. After making our way to the dining room, Lanto tells us to have a seat, drink some wine, get comfortable. He lets us know that Professor Olivier was just here. But wait a minute, didn't he say she was still here? Not mysterious at all. We find a hidden button behind this Gardevoir statue, and we press it, because who wouldn't? We then enter a room where it looks like Team Azoth has been experimenting on Pokemon, and at the back of the room, we once again run into Nebula. She lets us know that Lanto's been funding Team Azoth research this entire time. And also, what's the Golden Tree staff doing here? I'm pretty sure the Professor had that. What have you done with the Professor? The Azoth Grunt then activates the machine, and the life force from the Slowpoke is transferred into the Psyduck? And Nebula says this is the last thing that we'll ever see, challenging us to a double battle. She starts off with Victory Bell and Bronzong, and we send in Wigglytuff and Pizza. I'm going to swap Pizza out immediately, swapping into Tobias. The Victory Bell lays down some Toxic Spikes, while the Bronzong goes for a Zen Headbutt, doing a lot of damage to us. I'm going to go for a Thief on the Bronzong, hoping it's holding some kind of healing item, and we take an Akaberry, which is not quite what I wanted. There's another layer of Toxic Spikes goes down, and a Psyshock does barely anything to the Bronzong. After getting confused, we break through, going for a ruse to heal back up to full as a Sludge Bomb comes in, doing about 50% to us again. Wigglytuff fires off a Hyper Voice, doing about 50% to Victory Bell and nothing to Bronzong, as the Zen Headbutt brings us way down into the red, but luckily burns the Bronzong. We're then going to swap into Asher because it's the only Pokemon that can avoid the Toxic Spikes and resist most of Victory Bell's other moves, as Wigglytuff takes down Victory Bell. The Bronzong then goes for a Zen Headbutt on Asher, doing just a bit of damage, thankfully because of the burn as Weavile comes in. The Weavile then scores a crit low kick on our Lucario, KOing it. And the best Pokemon I have gets KO'd. Not really in a good spot here. We're going to swap into Maisie, who's going to get laid out by the Poison Spikes. A Poison Jab then comes in, doing barely anything as I fire off a Bulldoze, and we're able to KO the Weavile. And a Draining Kiss gets the Bronzong down to effectively nothing as the Zen Headbutt comes in, doing some chip damage to us. Her final Pokemon, Renucleus, comes in, and I'm going to go for a Stab Shadow Claw on it, doing about 50% damage as we take some damage from a Rocky Helmet and a Shadow Punch, bringing Maisie down as well. Wigglytuff then finishes off the Bronzong quickly enough, but we're down 2 Pokemon on this battle alone. I'm then going to swap into Pizza so I can avoid the Toxic Spikes. And Cristiano swaps out into Sliggoo, and we go for the Thunder Punch, bringing it down pretty low, but it's still not quite enough as the Zen Headbutt comes in, KOing Pizza. My team is absolutely decimated. With the spikes gone, we're going to swap into Chip, where I can go for a bite, finishing off the Renucleus, defeating Team Azoth, but at the cost of half of my team. After transferring the life force from this Slowpoke into this Psyduck, the crystal's energy is gone, and we need to find Professor Olivier. In the next room, we see Lanto upon a blood-red throne, in a blood-red room, with Professor Olivier hanging on the wall. I'm pretty sure he might be evil, but I'm still not 100% sure. Lanto then confirms what Nebula had been saying. He is personally financing Team Azoth because they're searching for a way to attain immortality. And who wouldn't want to be beautiful forever? Alka then enters the room, her rotom air blowing her hair in the wind. Still not 100% sure how shirts work. They reveal Team Azoth's ultimate plan. It's not just to attain immortality. It is for the full control over the cycle of life in death. This generation will be the final generation of the world. No more birth, no more death, only perfection. And while, if you're at the prime of your life, that might not be such a terrible thing, how are all the, 80-year-olds gonna feel just stuck being 80 forever? You guys are not considering that. Also, no more kids, no more new Pokemon. This plan's got holes everywhere. You're very, very selfish and you want to stay young and hot forever. And you're pretending like you're doing it for other people, but really you're not. You're doing it for you. And that's kind of crappy. And now we have to battle Lanto with only 3 Pokemon in our party. He starts off by sending in Frostlass, and we send in Dame. I'm going to pivot right away, sending in Tobias as she sets up a layer of spikes. Then firing off an Ember, we do barely anything because of an Aqua Berry, and she goes for a Frost Breath, which is automatically going to be a critical hit. On the following turn, we're going to Roost, hoping to ditch our Flying type, as it then fires off a Shadow Ball, doing a little bit more damage. Then going for another Ember, we can bring her down pretty low, as another Frost Breath is going to come in, getting us down to just 25 HP. Lanto then heals up with a Hyper Potion, and we're going to start roosting up to recover some as well. Going for another Ember, we're going to do about 40% this time, as another Shadow Ball comes in, getting us down pretty low. And finally, she misses a Frost Breath as Lanto uses his second Hyper Potion, so we can go and start just doing the same thing we've been doing. Eventually bringing it way down into the red, getting the burn off, and all she does is lay another layer of spikes before getting taken down on the following turn. But that also means with 3 layers of spikes, that's also not a great place to be. His next Pokemon, Lilligant, comes in, and this regional Lilligant is awesome. We're going to go for an Aerial Ace, getting it down just under 50% as it goes for a Power Gem, KOing Tobias. So we're going to send in Chip as the spikes do a bit of damage to us. Then going for a Flame Burst, Chip goes down too. So with only 1 Pokemon left, we send in Dame. The Lilligant then goes for a Quiver Dance as we go for a Calm Mind. And after taking a Flame Burst, we go for a Psychic, scoring a massive hit before a Giga Drain knocks us to just 8 HP, and we can manage to KO it on the following turn. But he still has more Pokemon as Perugly comes in, body slamming us, KOing us, and we wipe. Just at the climax of the game, where we find the ultimate plan of the evil team, we wipe. Team Azoth wins, attains their weird version of immortality, and we died. And that, everybody, is how I didn't beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Z. But if you like the game, the sound of my voice, and you'd like to see me put in a second attempt, let me know in the comments down below. If you made it this far in the video, please make sure that you subscribe. I'm also going to be streaming a new run of this game, so our first live session of that should already be up now. If you'd like to see me tackle other fan games and ROM hacks, let me know. But anywho, I'll catch you all in the next video. And hopefully, we'll have our vengeance. See ya.